All right, we are going to go in the packet today and do the reading, and then I'll explain to you what I want you to do with the pages or page that go with it. I may not have you do both, but I'm still going to read this. So it's called The Birch Bark House, and we'll start the story over here, and then I'll zoom back out for the pictures if you want to read along on here or with your packet. That's totally up to you. Omachias is returning home from an errand. She carries scissors for her mother and a lump of sweet maple candy for herself. Both the scissors and candy are rare and valued items in her Ojibwe village in 1847. She is not eager to return home to the chore of tanning a moose hide and her older sister Angeline, who made fun of her earlier in the day. Her feelings are hurt, and she wants nothing but to be respected by Angeline. Before she went back on the trail, Omachias rinsed off the old candy lump in the lake. It came out beautifully, cream golden, translucent, and grainy dark, and sweet. She started walking, her treasure now wrapped in a leaf. As she walked, Omachias thought, there was no way to share such a tough nut of sweetness. How would she divide it? Omachias decided she did not want to cause trouble at home. Furthermore, it suddenly made sense to her that at least one person in the family should get the full effect of the maple sugar. She would pop the whole thing into her mouth, all at once. This would save problems. The lump was delicious, tasting of spring sweetness and the inside of trees. Besides, Omachias reasoned, as she walked contentedly along, the taste of the sugar would save her from eating every one of the berries she was sure she would find on the path. All right, so I'll zoom out. As I'm reading, I want you to pay close attention. I forgot to mention this to the different traditions you hear about, because those are going to come up. Omachias' feet moved slower and even slower yet. For one thing, the moose hide waited. For another, she was still angry with her older sister and didn't want to see Angeline. She could still feel that sister foot pressing hateful on her back. If only there were some way to impress Angeline, cause her envy, make her say, "Can I have some of those berries, please, please, please?" You can be sure, Omachias thought, her face taking on a faraway, haughty expression. She would be slow in answering. Yet the worst of it was this: her sister was usually on her side, helping her plan tricks on the other children in the village, or gathering new ferns, or unerring rabbits, visiting the grave houses looking for sugar or food left for the spirits, tossing off her clothes to swim with her. And to have her older sister laugh at her hurt Omachias so much inside that she both it's hard to see some of these words. Inside that she both wanted Angeline to smile in surprise, to be proud, to envy her, and to feel rotten and be sorry forever. So Omachias took the slow way back, looking for odamin, little red heartberries in sunny margins of the woods near the ground. She carefully removed the hard lump of sweetness from her mouth, stuck it back in its leaf, just inside the pocket of her dress. Just as the taste of maple sugar faded along her tongue, she bent over, pushed back delicate leaves, and found masses of plump red little berries. 1, 2, 3. She'd eaten a huge handful. Another, she grinned, thinking that she'd allow her sister to return with her to plunder them, but only if Angeline changed her ways. All of a sudden, a rustle and then a thump in the bush ahead made Omachias freeze. A long moment passed as she stared through the dark leaves. Suddenly, crash! 2 bear cubs burst from the bush and rushed pell-mell, tumbling head over heels straight for her. They came on in such a hurry that they didn't see Omachias until they were nearly in her lap, and then, with comical looks of shock, they tried to stop themselves. One flew flat on its face, bumping its nose and squealing. The other twisted in midair and landed in a heap on the ground, shaking its head in confusion at Omachias. The bear boys looked at her. Slowly she put out her open hand filled with heartberries. Curious, the cubs jumped forward, lost their nerve, then scampered backward, and then crept forward shyly again. The smaller cub seemed slightly bolder and sniffed at Omakaya's hand. The bear cub took one berry, then jumped away in seeming fright at its own bold act. But the taste of the berry seemed to banish fear. The two now tumbled at her, growling, mock ferocious. Their long pink tongues touched up every berry from her hands, eagerly flicking them from her fingers as fast as she could pick. They seemed to like the game. It could have gone on for hours, that is, until she stood upright. Then they tumbled backward in alarm. Their chubby bottoms rolled them over like playing balls, and she laughed out loud. She realized they had thought Omakai's was their own size. They were astonished the same way Omakai's had been the first time she saw the traitor cadet unfold a seeing glass, something he called a telescope, a long shiny tube that grew in his hands. She bent down again. "Haneen, little bears, or little brothers," she said to them kindly, and they came forward. I'll show you the picture after we read this page. She looked around. No mother bear. Omakaias was well aware that she shouldn't stay so close to these cubs, but after all, they seemed deserted. She looked around again. There were orphans. Perhaps the mother bear's skin was now draped across old Tallow's bed, although she hadn't heard about a recent kill. But still, no mother bear in sight, and those little ones so hungry. Wouldn't her big sister be thrilled when Omakaias returned with these two new brothers? Eagerly, Omakais began to plan out her triumphant walk back to the house. She would enter the little clearing with the cubs, one at her heels and one before her. Everyone would make way impressed. She would lead the bear cubs around the fire 4 times before she presented one of them to Angeline, who would look at her with new respect. There was no warning. One moment, Omakaias was wiggling a leafy stick, making it move on the ground so the cubs could jump on it, biting furiously. The next moment, she found herself flipped over on her back and pinned underneath a huge, powerful, heavy thing that sent down a horrible stink. It was the sow bear, the mother, breathing on her a stale breath of decayed old deer hides and skunk cabbages and dead mushrooms. Whoa. Owa. The surprising thing was Omakaias realized later that although she had no memory of doing so, she had the scissors out of their case and open, the sharp ends pointing at the bear's heart. But she didn't use them as a knife. She knew for certain that she should not move. If the bear began to bite and claw, she would have to plunge the tip of the scissors straight between the bear's strong ribs, use all of her strength, sink the blade all the way into the rounded hilt, and then jump clear. If she could, while the bear went through its death agony. If she couldn't get clear, Omakaias knew she would have to roll up in a ball and endure the bear's fury. She would probably be clawed from head to foot, bitten to pieces, scattered all over the ground. Until the mother bear made the first move, Omakaias knew she should stay still, or as still as possible, given the terrified jumping of her heart. So she is playing with the 2 cubs. And this is what she seems to be seeing as if she was laying on the ground and the mother bear over her. For long moments, the bear tested her with every sense, staring down in her weak eyes, listening, and most of all smelling her. The bear smelled the morning's moose meat stew Omakaias had eaten. The wild onion seasoning and the dusty bit of maple sugar from old tallow stuck on to the inside of her pocket. How she hoped the bear did not smell the bear-killing dogs or the bear claw that hung or swung from a silver hoop from old Tallow's earlobe. Perhaps the bear smelled the kind touch of Grandma's and Mamma's bone and spruce wood comb, her baby brother's cuddling body, the skins and mats she had slept in, and little Pinch, who had whined and sobbed the night before. The bear smelled on Omakai's skin the smell of its own cousin's bear grease, used to ward off mosquitoes. Fish from the night before last night. The berries she was eating, the bear smelled all. Omakai's couldn't help but smell her back. Bears eat anything, and this one had just eaten something ancient and foul. Hain! Omakai's took shallow breaths. Perhaps it was to take her mind off the scent of dead things on the bear's breath that she accidentally closed the scissors, shearing off the tiny clip of bear fur, and then to cover her horror at this mistake, she started to talk. Nokomis, she said to the bear, calling her grandmother. I didn't mean any harm. I was only playing with your children. Gawion Jida, please forgive me. The bear cuffed at Omakaya's, but in a warning manner, not savagely to hurt. Then the bear leaned back, nose working as though she could sense the meaning of the human words. Encouraged, Omakais continued. I fed them some berries. I wanted to bring them home, to adopt them, have them live with me at my house as my little brothers. But now that you're here, grandmother, I will leave quietly. These scissors in my hands are not for killing, just for sewing. They are nothing compared to your teeth and claws. So here's the picture. Cubs are back here. She's talking to the mother. And indeed, Omakaya's voice trembled slightly as the bear made a gurgling sound deep in her throat and bared her long, curved, yellowish teeth, so good at ripping and tearing. But having totaled up all of the smells and sifted them for information, the bear seemed to have decided that Omakayas was no threat. She sat back on her haunches like a huge dog. Swinging her head around, she gave a short, quick slap at one of the cubs that sent it reeling away from Omakayas. It was as though she were telling them they had done wrong to approach this human animal, and should now stay away from her. Omakaya's heart squeezed painfully. Even though it was clear her life was to be spared, she felt the loss of her new brothers. I wouldn't ever hurt them, she said again. The little cubs, piled against their mother, clung to her. For a long moment, a great bear sat calmly with them, deciding where to go. Then, in no hurry, they rose in one piece of dark fur. One bear boy broke away, again tried to get near Omakayas. The other looked longingly at her, but the big bear mother abruptly nosed them down the trail. All right. Okay, so we're going to look at this page. It says, one of the important themes in Birch Bark House is the honoring of the traditions of ancestors. Omakayas refers to these traditions throughout the story. The concept map below will show how her words and actions connect to this theme. So the only problem is you don't have the page numbers from the actual book, which this is referring to. So let's see if we can problem solve this and I can maybe write the page numbers on there. It says, read page 672. How does the way Omakayas greets the bear cub show her respect for traditions? Write your answers in one of the empty ovals in the concept map. So we would need to find the page where she greets the bears. Let's see. I think she probably greets them somewhere over here. Okay. So I would say this is probably the page they would like you to look at. And I think did they say it was 672? Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna label this page 672 so that we can all remember. So 72. So I would start here, and you might need to go a little bit onto the next page just to see how she greeted them, but most of it's right there. So, and then you're gonna come down and you're gonna tell me, what about how she greeted them did you find might be more tradition-like to her culture? And then it says, page 674, what tradition does Omakais follow if she brings the bear cubs home? Okay, write this detail in an empty oval. Okay, so if she brings them home, we said that was 672. I'm going to guess. Yep, so this would be 674. So you need to go back and read this page. Let me see if I can give you like a quick glance over so you can see it when you go back. So it's talking about what tradition would be followed if she were to take the bears home. And then the last bubble, and you write your answer in one of the other bubbles. And then the last one says on page 677, how does Omakayas use the tradition to keep Mother Bear from hurting her? So we are going to go to 677. So if this is 674, 675. All right, so right here, apparently it's going to be tiny again. Oh, nope, okay. 677 would be this page. So you use that to help you answer that last one and then write it in a bubble. I'm not going to have you write a poem. You can skip this part. And then I just want to go back and check some of these little bubbles. We kind of talk about this one a lot with what the pages ask. Let me just see. I would like you to answer this question on Shobi. So it says, what do you notice about this story's illustrations? How do the illustrations add to the beauty of the text? So what do you just notice about the illustrations, and how does that add to the story and make it more, you know, a nicer story or the beauty of the story? Okay, and then this one I would also like you to answer. So it says the author's word choice. Authors use sensory details that make readers feel what is happening in the story. So that means they're trying to get you to feel and understand what's happening. So which details of the bear encounter make you feel Omakaya's fear? So what has you understanding how she's feeling fearful? And then we could probably do this one too. Theme, how does Omakayas respond during the mother bear encounter, and how do her reactions relate to the theme of the story, which is by like following tradition. Okay, so then answer this one. So just to give you again what you need to do is you need to do this side, so you're just filling in these bubbles based on those pages and kind of what Omakayas does, and then you are going to skip the first little box. You are going to do the second one, so talking about the visual elements. You are going to talk about the author's word choice, and then you're going to answer the question about the theme of the story, and then you're done with reading.